We went down to the Phoenix City Council meeting last week to document citizens' responses to the Phoenix PD's use of tear gas and pepper balls on some of the protesters outside the rally President Trump held a couple weeks ago. You know, when this happened.
Saw one of the protesters go up there and actually kick a can of that.
There's some agitators out here that are kicking the pepper spray back, and a guy just got shot.
We weren't quite sure what to expect at the council meeting, but suffice to say it wasn't boring. For a city council meeting, that is. These fine citizens were at the meeting for a number of reasons, aside from zoning issues and liquor licenses and all those boring, legitimate reasons. Many of them were upset that the police used pepper spray, despite the fact that the Phoenix police issued ample warning about the fact that they were going to use pepper spray. Many were claiming that the police never issued warnings about their use of pepper spray, despite the fact that they in fact issued ample warning about their use of pepper spray. As angry Phoenicians gave their comments, it became clear that the whole "we didn't get warned" narrative was the central issue. Or was it? They showed their hand later, though not before creating a minor insurrection in the sacred council chambers. See, normally, the Phoenix City Council allows 15 minutes of citizen comments before they get to the real issues, like which restaurants can sell beer. And after all the boring stuff gets done, citizens can yak at the mayor until the cows come home. So, after a few speakers got to voice their complaints, the mayor tried to move along with the meeting.
In recess right now.
But the people weren't having it. No, they opted to shout down anyone who tried to bring the meeting to order, eventually forcing the council to take a break, at which point the microphone was turned off. Apparently, that was not acceptable to the good citizens of Phoenix. They insisted on being heard, even if it was during a 10-minute recess, and even if they had to turn the city council meeting into some sort of repeat after me slam poetry session. Eventually, the mayor and the council members came back and fixed everything by rearranging the meeting to fit the demands of the angry mob.
So we are going to take the citizen comment cards that were submitted and listen to citizen comment. We're going to take it right now. We're going to take it right now. I've talked to my colleagues, and that was the best.
As the comments continued, the real goal of many of these people came out.
I was really disappointed that you seemed pleased with the response of the police. I was sick for days after this happened. These are not simple ways to disperse crowds. These are chemical weapons. We need to make sure that these kind of weapons are not an option for Phoenix police to use against citizens. We need to make sure that chemical warfare is not on the table.
You should have been at the airport to stop Air Force One from landing. That's what you should have did, Mayor.
Take those tools away from them because they don't know how to use them. They're wrong. Don't use them again.
It's not a good idea for you to waste any more dollars out of our city's budget to conduct a phony investigation into the police department.
We know that we have two-faced politicians, fake politicians, and racist police here in Phoenix. Do your job, if not, we will take it from you.
These people didn't really want an investigation into police brutality or an apology. They wanted to disarm police and get them out of schools. Not everyone wanted to disarm cops, though. Some of them were genuinely angry that they got pepper sprayed without warning. In fact, most of them made some mention of the lack of warning.
It was Phoenix police that attacked us.
That made us wonder, was there ample warning? Turns out there was.
So we did make announcements. There are people claiming that we didn't make any announcements or warnings. We did warn people. Maybe you weren't there to hear that or listen for that. The air unit was overhead making announcements and warnings. A few small, minute group of people decided to create the dynamic that forced my employees to have to go in and rectify the situation. And quite frankly, you mentioned it, we could have had a riot. We didn't have a riot because we were professional, we were dedicated, we were concise, and we were very calculated in our approach. And I'm praising law enforcement for their restraint that was used. We didn't rush the line. We gave people the opportunity to make the decision to deploy and go home and create a peaceful scenario and situation. So I know people are angry. There are some groups out there that are very angry with law enforcement right there. I would challenge them to be angry with the people that created the dynamic that forced my officers to have to go in and create the situation where our city is safe, there's no property damage, and there were no major injuries to anyone. To me, that's a success.
Phoenix police telling us that there were a few protesters out there that started throwing rocks and bottles at them.
Heck, even this guy, who seemed to be there just to stir up trouble, said the police warned them.
They were telling people to get back behind lines and stuff like that, but kind of being rude about it instead of asking nicely.
Some of them complained about the police charging down the street.
Afraid of pepper balls and tear gas and guns and batons and charging at us.
But it turns out the charging was more like slowly walking and retreating strategically to gain ground without hurting anybody.
Oh yeah, I saw them charging. I didn't know a student walked down the streets and charged.
The meeting went on for a while, so long in fact that we decided to go home and eat dinner. And it just kept going and going for 5 hours. We even started to feel bad for the council members and the mayor having to listen to angry citizen after angry citizen complain about what really was a job well done by the Phoenix PD. Eventually, every disconcerted person got to speak their mind and the chambers emptied, leaving the city council to decide what to do about the gross abuse of power by the police. Turns out they weren't having any of it.
So for the officers who were here, and I know there are quite a few of them, but for the officers who may hear this later, you got a tough gig. I applaud you for your efforts. I appreciate it.
I was horrified at the type of comments I heard about our police officers. I don't even know why they do their job anymore. I really don't. To the public that's still there, doesn't look like there's a whole lot, but the ones that are there, I would ask you, they have children, they have families as well. They're human beings like everyone else. They're put into a stressful situation like that, and they did an exemplary job.
And I respect those officers who do that work for this community very, very much.
These whiners got their asses handed to them by a completely reasonable decision by a bunch of city council members and one very tired mayor. So what did we learn from it all? 1, there are still reasonable people out there. The social justice warriors and snowflakes tend not to rise to the top of the pile, at least here in Arizona. 2, never take someone's word for granted. The crux of these people's argument was that the police didn't give them warning about the tear gas. Turns out, that's just false, but we wouldn't have known that if we'd listened to the voice of the mob. And 3, we're gonna bring snacks to city council meetings from now on.